What's going on, guys? Charles here. Welcome to this lesson. So the first line of code we're going to talk about, funnily enough, is actually not a code. All right. So in this video, in this lesson, I want to talk about comments. Now, as a programmer, comments are going to be your best friend when you develop an app or a program. So essentially, the idea with a comment is to comment a code or comment a section or portion of your code to provide some sort of a note. Now, the reason you want to do this is that eventually when you get into advanced stuff and we develop all these long and complicated apps and programs and stuff like that, you are going to get to a point where you're going to have a lot of lines, many lines of code, and you need to actually comment these codes to actually provide some sort of instruction on what is this code. You know, there are a lot of different reasons you would want to add a comment, right? So first is that when you come back to it, let's say you write a massive line of page of code and you want to come back to it 3 months later, you're not going to be confused. So you actually go throughout the sections of the code and okay, this based on this comment, this portion of the code does this. So by doing this, you actually guide yourself when you come back to the code with these notes to realize what each section of the code does, and if you need to make any updates or changes or stuff like that. So that is one of the reasons or instances that commenting out code actually helps you to realize exactly what is going on in the code instead of just trying to read out entirely from the beginning to figure out what is what in a code. Another thing is that when you actually work in a massive tech company, commenting out your code is very important, because obviously when you work with a lot of other people, they need to, when you look at your code, they need to realize what is each section of a code is doing, and that way you can actually talk about it, people can actually understand it easier and all that stuff. And commenting out something in Python is actually pretty simple. In your Replit, obviously we're using Replit. The simplest way to actually comment is just add a hashtag. So you add a hashtag and you can put anything you want after. And one of the signs that something that you're adding is a comment is actually it's going to be green, right? And another thing that you might want to remember or know is that comments actually don't do anything in the code. They don't have any value in the code. They don't actually compile at all. And they just exist for the pure reason to just guide people. There's really nothing else. So for example, for this comment, we got a line of code here again, which we'll talk about in the next videos. But for example, I'm going to say this is a print function. So that way, for example, I'm guiding anyone who's looking at this code and say, hey, look, this is a print function. So this is a code. And if I, again, run this code, we're just going to see the results of this code and not the actual comment itself. So comments are very important, guys. Again, it's pretty much your best friend as a programmer, because you're going to, when you come back to a code later on, you definitely don't want to confuse yourself with thousands of lines of code. All right, so commenting out your code as we go down is really, really important. Now, as we practice, commenting code is really not something you're going to be seeing. But when we get into more complicated development projects, you're going to see me actually use a lot of comments and, use a lot of comments like this to actually exactly explain to myself or to my future self, essentially, what is this code and what is this portion doing exactly. So comments are pretty easy. Again, a hashtag, and again, you can actually, you don't even need to have the space, but again, you can actually use hashtag and then just add anything you want, any character, anything. Just keep in mind that if you go to the next line, that's not going to be a comment anymore. That's actually a code, right? So keep in mind the line needs to start with a hashtag or a number sign or whatever you guys call it. So yeah, so that's a comment. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Very simple. As I said, the first video, the first coding video of this section is actually a non-coding video. So let me know if you have any questions about comments. Pretty simple and straightforward. If not, I'll see you in the next one.